got to get into the next one. Now, this one is again a little bit of that weirdo type of energy. And I say all of that to say is in July, we learned that Sony had posted a job listing for a senior director of multi-platform, right? Explicitly seeking a leader in this field to manage its commercial strategy for releasing titles on other platforms, including, this was the wording, folks, Xbox, Steam, and Nintendo. But Cork, we had a changing of some of the wording for PlayStation, and according to the report that I have in front of me, it was a Screen Rant article that posted the headline suggesting Sony's latest business update would shut down hopes for more PlayStation games on Xbox. Well, the one thing I do have in front of me, and this is an AI answered, overview in not only Google but Grok as well. And again, folks, this is facts. Helldivers 2 has come out, like Silent Cypher said, and yes, the ultimate sales right now are favoring PlayStation because they had a year jump on it releasing on Xbox. I think the number has ballooned to over 5 million copies sold on PlayStation 5. That's pretty big. 5 million copies of anything is a big deal. So a lot of people on PlayStation are enjoying Helldivers. Now, they're going to get some pushback by some people that are going to be like, well, wait a second, Boom. 5 million copies sold versus 80 million consoles out in the wild, shipped or purchased, whichever, flavor of the day people are going to use. And I could see people talking about that because, again, that's a lot of consoles versus the 5 million, but 5 million is a very strong number. But what we did learn is that in the same time frame of release on PlayStation 5 versus the release on Xbox Series consoles, the number at the time was over 900,000, nearly a million, versus the 603,000 on PlayStation 5. So ultimately, in that time frame of release within the first week, Xbox has done 1/3 better. Now, I don't have any additional new numbers, whether it's gotten to 2 million, 3 million, 10 million, but I know that it's doing very well for Sony. Sony owns the IP of Helldivers, and I know a lot of people try to equate that the additive or the addition of the ODST was the only reason why it did well on all platforms. It's folks. Yeah, I'm sure that helped. But Helldivers in itself, even without ODST, is a freaking amazing game. So people bought it on Xbox, and people continue to buy on Xbox. I think it's safe to say you don't have to be a business genius or wizard or even have a doctrine in Business 101. You can say, well, they put a game on Xbox. Xbox players supported it better than they did in the same time frame than PlayStation, and it continues to do well for them, i.e., make money. Well, there has been a big push to suggest by plenty of the PlayStation mains, and I would even dare say the toxic assholes of the games community, who almost in unison put out a blurb, one paragraph of what Sony said in this recent business update. Interestingly enough, and not surprising to be quite honest with you, Korkenstein, they left out the bottom part of that article or that blurb where it does say that they are going to continue to put games on platforms that make sense, meaning that they're going to continue to put games on Xbox that will make them money. But according to the overview that I have in front of me, reports and speculation about PlayStation's ending its multi-platform business appear to be based on a misunderstanding of Sony's recent business updates. In reality, according to the document I have in front of me, the company is continuing and even expanding its strategy of releasing games on multi-platforms with a special focus on PC. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The rumor versus reality. The mistaken rumor on September 16th of 2025, Screen Rant published an article with a headline suggesting that Sony's latest business update would shut down hopes for more PlayStation games on Xbox. The article in question misinterpreted a change in Sony's revenue report, where game revenue beyond console was moved to a different financial segment as a move away from the multi-platform releases. This is where it gets even more interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm reading verbatim. I'm not adding any of my own words here. The factual update. The change in accounting for revenue does not signal an end to PlayStation's multi-platform strategy. Multiple other reports and evidence contradicted this interpretation, including, and here are the bullet points, folks. Continued PC releases. PlayStation has been releasing its first-party games on PC for years and has even acquired a studio, Nixxes, to handle these ports. Expansion to other consoles. In August of 2025, PlayStation surprised many by releasing Helldivers 2 on Xbox, demonstrating its openness to expanding onto other consoles and other platforms. The success of this move has been interpreted as a positive sign for the viability of this strategy. And of course, going right back to what they did in July, I'll read it verbatim once again. Targeted hiring. In July of 2025, Sony posted a job listing for a senior director of multi-platform, explicitly seeking a leader to manage its commercial strategy in releasing titles on other platforms, including Xbox, Steam, and Nintendo. I mean, look, folks, I don't know how more clear you need to hear the words coming out of my mouth, but that is an actual document that I will add to the show notes. So if you want to read it yourself, by all means. Some of the victory laps that have gone on are to the point where I am embarrassed, literally embarrassed for some of these content creators. And again, this is one of those instances where I am not going to do the names thing because I don't need to. I don't ever want to go out of my way as a content creator, a leader in this community, and try to embarrass someone to get subs, likes, or my point across. My point is clear. Xbox went multi-platform, and one of the biggest stories of 2025 so far, gentlemen and chat, has been a 4-year-old racer is literally the best-selling game on the PlayStation 5 this year. I mean, now, if you're Sony, if you're Hiroki Totoki, if you're Noshino, and you're looking at this, you're saying, wait a second, they're making money hand over fist. Yes, they're getting 30%. Absolutely. On every sale, whether it be DLC or the game itself, Sony's making 30%. 30% is a lot of money. But the truth of the matter is that the same way that they're making money at 30%, I'm sure Sony is like, well, wait a second. We'd like to make some more money. We have all of these IPs. They're sitting on digital servers like Spider-Man. Sony does not own Spider-Man. They own the film rights. They don't own the video game rights. And we do know that Disney themselves has upped the ante on how much they get of their take, right? So if they are getting more, Sony is going to have to pay more to put out more Marvel games. And we know next year, the rumor is Wolverine is going to be releasing. The following year is going to be expected to be the Venom game, which they're working on right now. That is going to be the Lethal Protector, which I cannot wait to play. And then after that, you would imagine Spider-Man 3, and there's even X-Men they're going to be working with. So they're going to be making a lot of these Marvel-based games. They're going to be spending a lot of money to make these games, and they're going to want to make a lot of money But I'll tell you one thing: it can't be just from PlayStation players. And the perfect example of that, Cork, is, and I go right back to this, folks. Numbers are the numbers. Helldivers 2 outsold Spider-Man 2. Okay, one cost $315 million to make. One cost $100 million to make. I don't know. I mean, you find folks do the math, but Cork, let's get your thoughts on the misrepresentation by many of the PlayStation's nations, content creators, on how Sony was not only going to reverse engines for putting games on Xbox, but stop putting games onto PC. Just foolhardy stuff. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, it's just to save face. I mean, these guys, they'll do anything to save face at this point, from looking stupid. And a lot of them knowingly did it to, because they rather value engagement than actually talking about games or even playing games for that matter. Yeah, it's absolutely silly. This was a no-brainer. PlayStation started seeing the revenue and the MAUs skyrocket for Xbox when Sea of Thieves hit their platform. There is no way PlayStation wasn't going to be like, wow, Xbox is really making a lot of money on our platform. Yeah, too bad we care more about a plastic box than money, right, guys? And we're not going to do this. How does that make any sense? They saw like so much, and we even saw in their last financials, their quarterlies, I think a month or two ago, that mentioned sales from third-party games and things like that, was significant for them. That was what really boosted a lot of their revenue, was this multi-platform third-party content, and that was just with them getting a 30% cut, from selling, or from getting Xbox games put on their platform. What imagine what they're going to be getting with 70% now, or 80%, depending on the deals. Even 60% is a great number. I doubt it's going to be that far, but yeah, there's absolutely no way that Sony can't be looking, especially at the success of Helldivers, that they're not going to be bringing this over, or at least more games. You don't create, or I mean, not create, but you don't restaff a $300,000 a year position if you weren't going to do multiplat. You don't put in that position's job posting Xbox and Steam and Epic Game Store if you weren't going to bring games to those platforms still. For these guys thinking it's just going to be a one and done. No, it's more than likely probably going to be most, I'm not going to say whole slate, but most of it. Anything that has a casual consumer, the casual consumer's attention. So The Last of Us is probably going to end up going. Spider-Man, that's a big Marvel game. And we already saw their margins. They were single digit margins on a Marvel IP game. That's insane. And they spent $350 million on just one of those games, and they're seeing single digit margins. There's no way, especially with Disney, is probably, hey, or how about you bring some Spider-Man games, or they're Disney's going to bring that pressure a little bit. I wouldn't even be surprised if Wolverine ends up becoming multi-platform. Maybe it might have like a 6 months to a year timed exclusive, but I wouldn't doubt that game is more than likely probably going to come to Xbox sooner or later. It's just really, really silly that people will try and misconstrue the facts so they could get cheap engagement, so they could cheerlead their favorite plastic box. This is a good thing for you as a consumer. It's an amazing thing. Play the games where you want to play your games. Spend your money in the ecosystem you want to spend in, and still be able to play some of the games that are available in other ecosystems. It's a win-win for you. Yeah, unless you own Sony stock or Microsoft stock, and even then, if you do, you should be cheering this, because I'm pretty sure their financials are going to go up, which means you make money either way. So I don't understand how you're going to make this such a bad negative thing when it benefits everybody that's there. Consoles aren't going away anytime soon. These platforms aren't going to go away because they're multi-platform. If anything, it's going to strengthen their position. It's just really silly just for these guys to come out and just cheerlead for a plastic box. Where we're done with that. Start playing these games that these bangers that you guys consistently talk about. Start playing some of these games that you really want. That you want to see more of. Because we're seeing in a time right now in the industry where people, studios are getting closed down because of closed ecosystems, because of those walled gardens, that they're not multi-platform, they're not making the money that they should. So you guys, bitch and moan every time, oh, they're closing down this studio, this is so horrible, but none of you bought the game. Maybe if they went on a different platform, they could have stayed open. Things like that. This is a win-win all around. I can't see a negative spin on any of this that would actually make sense.
You know what's interesting? I'm sure someone's going to hear the podcast and be like, Boom, you used to be a console exclusive guy. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm considered the old guard in the community, right? I'm an old man. I liked exclusives. I thought exclusives did matter, but I'm here to tell you that with the change of the world, you either stay the same and get left behind, or you change. Silent Cypher, I want to get your thoughts on this, brother. This is a raging conversation, and it's a big one, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, going back to all of this conversation and like the walled garden side of things, the exclusivity, all that stuff, just touching on that too. Like, yeah, back at a certain time, I was a big fan of the first, of just having the exclusive stuff on the system. Like, it was cool. It was nice. But as I grew up, which all of us do to an extent, although if you look on social media, apparently a lot of us don't actually grow up. When you look at it, it makes business sense. And that's what these companies are concerned about, right? Like Microsoft isn't concerned, Sony isn't concerned, definitely. And we know Nintendo's not concerned about your feelings. They're concerned about their bottom line. What makes business sense? It's the reason why Xbox is moving into all the different markets that they are. How can we make more money? We get more of you involved in our ecosystem. How can we do that? We'll make it so you can access Xbox on every single thing that you have as far as technology goes that's in your house. Again, like we joke about the stuff like the refrigerator, your mobile phone, your ROG Ally, your PC, everything can do it. If it has a browser, you have access. Nintendo is an interesting one. We talk about it all the time. I'm not a fan, but I get it. Still has its following. They're a unique one. They're like the unicorn, right? Where they can do all these things. They can make these decisions. They can keep it in a walled garden, and no one's concerned. Like everyone just follows along. Is like, yeah, Nintendo, you're doing such good work. We're so happy that you're, supporting this one system. And they never ask for the games to come to other systems. They don't critique it the same way that they critique Xbox or PlayStation. Something comes out to Xbox or whatever. It's like when Indiana Jones came out to Xbox, right? Well, but we gotta have it on PlayStation, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, cool. If you do that to Nintendo, Nintendo's like, that's nice. Hold my beer. Like, you're still gonna buy my stuff. I'll sell you cardboard, and you'll willingly go buy the cardboard for $70 or $80 because that's what it is. Xbox and PlayStation can't do the same thing. There's a weird double standard there for some reason. It's agitating. But it's just like, I don't know. It was interesting to see all of the mental gymnastics that's happened recently with people being like, oh, well, PlayStation's not going third party anymore. No, this new document, it clearly states this, blah, blah, blah. Do you really think that after the success of something like Helldivers 2, in that first few days, you think that they're just going to say, no, wrap it up, boys. We're going back to first party exclusive again. It's going to be only in our walled garden. No, Sony has not seen the sales on software the way that they used to. And so how are they going to expand that out? They're going to continue to make it so their games are more accessible across other systems. You're going to see it on your Steams. You might eventually see more stuff on Xbox. It's not a big surprise. They want to make money. They're a company that wants to last. And if you want to stay around, you have to remain relevant. You have to get to your consumer. And it's no longer, the customer is not just the person in that walled garden. Now they can access the stuff on Steam, on Xbox, these different ecosystems. That's only a win for Sony, just like it was only a win for Xbox. When Xbox made it so you could start accessing these things all over the place, like when they moved over to PC back in the day, and everyone freaked out about it. It's like, yeah, okay. But guess what? The company saw where things were going. They realized that there's a set group of gamers that they'll only ever get access to if they stay in this walled garden. And so they said, what do we do? Let's open it up so that way we can actually access more people. We can get these games out there and we can make money off of these things. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about the money. They don't care about your feelings, whether it's still on your favorite plastic box. They want to make money. That's what they do. And it's like we're having a little bit of a chat in the or we're having a conversation in the chat about stuff like the handhelds and the concern about, oh well, if the sales don't match up to what it is and what they want, then this thing's it's going to just fail or whatever, and it's not going to benefit anyone. Like if ROG Ally releases this new system and it fails, then like why would Microsoft support these different things, these incentives in the future? And it's like the Xbox UI wrapper that we've been released that can now be accessed and used on everything at this point in time. If you're in the Windows Insider program, you have access to this.
Yes, correct.
In the future, you're going to continue to have access to this. It doesn't matter if a piece of hardware fails. I don't think people are getting that. Is like, just if one handheld isn't selling well, that doesn't mean that Microsoft can't still use that wrapper for everything else. Moving forward, if the Ally failed horribly, which like they had a lot of funding from Xbox, it seems like, based on this partnership.
Yep.
A lot of funding. If the ROG Ally comes out and it fails, that doesn't mean that this wrapper goes away. This thing is out in the open now. It's going to get iterated on.
It's the future of gaming, dude.
Again. Yeah. It's like you'll be able to use this anywhere and everywhere where it's an option with Windows. So if one system goes down, so be it. It is what it is. Like we see competition go out all the time, but we're going to continue to see more handhelds come out. We're going to see more stuff come out over time, and we're going to see people utilize this because, again, this wrapper is beneficial for us as gamers in the fact that if you use this UI wrapper, it actually frees up resources on the back end. So you get like an extra 2 gigs of RAM that otherwise would be locked up because of the processing in the background. So that's a benefit for developers. A developer would see something like that and be like, oh, this is good for me. And so they'll try and utilize that if they can. Like that's a good thing. And that's going to continue, and it's going to get utilized more as we go forward. But sorry, going back to them marketing this and being like, oh no, they're not doing their third party stuff anymore. It's all over. Like, come on, guys. Like realistically, we're going to see probably Returnal. There's been talks about that one coming.
Yep.
That's pretty likely at this point in time.
And can I just pop in for a second?
Sure.
Is that a single player game? Because I was told by a lot of the ponies out there, and the folks, let's be clear. I don't like using the terminology, but there's a difference between ponies who are toxic MFs and PlayStation players. There's a very big difference there. a very large gap between the two. PlayStation players are here to play games and enjoy their PlayStation because that is the console that they enjoy playing on. Zero wrong with that. The Pony universe thinks that everything that if it's not Sony Blue, it's not good. And they're the toxic MFs of the community. And that's who I have an actual problem with. But I was told by the ponies that no, they're never going to send over a single player game. See, now every time there's been a change in Sony's ideology, it's because of something. Let's say let me bring up some thoughts here. So when MLB came over to Xbox, it was because MLB forced the envelope. And that's the truth. That's why MLB is the one that publishes on Xbox, because they literally told PlayStation, look, you're not making enough money on one platform. We need this everywhere. And that's what they did. Okay, great. So when Kojima bought back the rights for his IP and it came over to Xbox, what was the excuse then? Oh, let me remind you folks. Oh, well, it's not really a PlayStation game going over because 505 Games is the one that's publishing it. And so that doesn't really count, right? And then when Helldivers was announced, and of course, all the panning I was reprieved from, it was like, well, it makes sense now, Boom, because it's a multiplayer game, and, well, it's a gas game, and it has microtransactions, so that makes sense for Sony, right? So now we've been hearing for the last couple of weeks, the next one is Returnal, which is, by the way, a single-player game, which they said would not come over. I wonder what the excuse is going to be there, Sound Cipher.
I wish that no, you know what? I don't wish I could get inside the mind of a pony because it sounds like a damning place to be. But I'm sure there's going to be some sort of excuse, and it's going to be stupid because it usually is. It's not about gaming for them. It's about standing on their little pedestal and having access to their thing, and no one else can have it. It's king syndrome. Oh, I can have all these things, but you don't get to have it. Like, whatever. Just shut up. Go play some games. But in response to that, right? Like the single player type of thing, I don't really care about what a pony's opinion is about why this thing's coming over. Let's look about it on the business end, right? Sony's sitting here and they're like, okay, well, we could make more money bringing other stuff. So let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that we haven't done anything with for the last little bit. Oh yeah, Returnal. That thing's got dust growing on it right now.
And did it not sell well? Yeah, because it didn't sell well. It struggled to break 1 million sales.
It's shocking.
What if, Silent Cypher, that releases on Xbox? Because I didn't buy it on PlayStation. You know where I am going to buy it? On Xbox. Because I put my money where my mouth is, unlike some others. But please continue, sir.
No, and it's a good point, right? Is like, this game, as it turns out, didn't sell super amazing. It didn't set the world on fire. It was just like how Death Stranding, like it did okay. But it did better once it got opened up to a PC market and then eventually Xbox. Why? Shocker. As soon as you put the game out so more people can access it, the game's going to sell better. Isn't that wild? Did someone miss math class when we were in school? Because if you add these numbers and then you put other numbers right with it, surprise, the number goes up. It's shocking. You're going to make more sales because you have access to this in other places. But guess what? It's not going to stop at Returnal. If they see that as a success, what else will they do? They'll be like, oh yeah, Days Gone. That thing's got like an inch of dust on it now at this point in time because we failed to do anything with it. We never released a sequel. But you know what? We could fudge out a remaster of this and kick it out to another system and probably make another 1 or 2 mil. Right? It only makes sense for Sony, just like it makes sense for Xbox. If I have something that's here that's just sitting and could be making more money, then why the hell am I going to have it just sitting on the bookshelf? Why not release it to other people? And for Sony fans to be so bent out of shape on this right now and be like, well, no, they're changing their approach and blah blah blah. This is literally Sony's moment. This is their 4 games moment. It's just 4 games. No, it's just 4 games. Only 4 games are coming over. If you believe that, man, I've got some land to sell you out in the Pacific. Like, come on. Let's look at the history of the last few years. Just 4 games. Interesting. Just like Sony's like, well, it's just going to be multiplayer games. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. It depends. Does Sony want to make money, or do they want to support you in your little walled garden? We'll see. But I think dollars to donuts on this. You're going to see single player games come over to Xbox, and whether they like it or not, Sony's going to make the moves that keeps them relevant for the future.
Yeah. So just before we bring in Fuzzy Velvet to get his final thoughts on this topic, I have some numbers in front of me. You know how I feel about numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I'm an evidence-based conversation kind of a podcaster. So I have some numbers, and interestingly enough, now it's going back a couple of years, but Returnal sold on PlayStation 5 866,000 copies, but they shipped 1 million, right? Additionally, when it was released on PC, they sold 162,000 copies of it. Now, I mean, whether you consider that to be a hit, we know the game was profitable because Sony told us in one of their financials that the game was profitable. So, but it didn't blow up the charts. 866,000 copies were sold on PlayStation. That's a little bit below 1 million. They did ship 1 million copies though. So I know some people are going to run with the ship thing rather than the actual sold thing. That's fine. But Fuzzy, both Korkenstein and Silent Cypher made some incredible points. But I have some additional context that I'd like to bring in. Again, I love being an evidence-based conversation kind of a podcaster. When Xbox decided to go full third party and start putting games regularly and bringing new games to PlayStation, we were at a crossroads where of the top 10 best-selling games, meaning money, games that sold and made money, at times, Xbox held 6 of those top 10 spots. Now, that may not be what's happening today, but it has been quite a few months. Whenever they released a game, it was in their top 10 best-selling, meaning most purchased game. Interestingly enough, focusing on now Sony making money, it turns out that when Helldivers 2 came out, it hit the number 1 and number 3 spots on Xbox Live for most purchased game. That means that Sony is making money. 70% of that money went to PlayStation. So with that success, how would Sony now decide, well, we made money. God damn it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to shit the bed. So you know what? We're going to stop putting games on PC, and we're definitely not putting games on Xbox because, God damn it, that was a success. That is ultimately what it would sound like if somebody from PlayStation or one of these ponies would be talking out loud. And that is the most preposterous thing I've ever heard. They succeeded. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm one of the first YouTubers to give Sony their flowers, where I said multiple times with you on one of the other podcasts that I have a strong suspicion that if Sony were to release more games on Xbox, they would have the exact same success as Xbox on PlayStation. If they put a Spider-Man, a Days Gone, or Returnal, these games would be in the most paid for game on Xbox, meaning that they would be making money. So when someone says, well, they're not going to do that, you got to put them on the pay no mind list of stupidity, because that is ultimately what it is. Let's get your thoughts on this before we get on out of here. Break it down, bro.
Yeah, I remember seeing on social media a couple of people were starting to speculate that this was going to be a change in direction because of some wording changes on a recent report where they didn't break out the third party sales from the regular sales. Let me ask you, when you go to the movie theater and they say they have Coke, do you only assume that they only have regular Coke, or is it to say that they no longer have Diet Coke, or I don't know, Coke Zero or Cherry Coke or anything? Like, they're starting to just list it as one thing because that's moving forward. Why break it out if now you're going to make more of an effort to put games everywhere? If third party was going to be this thing that they wanted to keep an eye on to see how well it was doing, now that they saw that it was doing well, they just listed it as all sales. And then that way, whoever's in charge of the non-third party stuff, where some of their games aren't doing as well on their primary platform, they don't have to catch heat on it. It's like, hey, was it high tides lift all boats kind of thing? They just count it as one big pot of how they're looking at their sales of those games. So I can't explain enough to those that are, I guess, hesitant to believe that Sony would ever do this. We've heard arguments before of how Sony likes to copy, or they do a lot of the similar things to what Xbox has done in the past. And people always say, why would you follow, last place and blah, blah, blah. All right. How many of you have iPhones? For the same ones that say, why would you follow last place? For a while, they were in last place. And in the States, now worldwide, it's a different story, but in the States, they're now in first place. Why is that? Because they copied a lot of the stuff that Android was doing. Now, I used to be an Apple fan, but by, what was it, the 10th anniversary, I kind of fell off because of that whole Bert and Ernie eyebrow thing. I wasn't, that was something that Steve Jobs would never allow. So I don't like, that's not my Apple. Let's just put it that way. So if you're an Apple fan, just know that Apple copies a lot of other tech companies that are quote unquote behind them, or they don't like to be first on things because they like to sit back and wait and see how it goes. So since they saw that Xbox is putting their stuff third party and it's working for them, where, what was it, like 8 out of the top 20 games on their system were from Xbox Studios. I think they're like, you know what, we could do that same thing and get an extra revenue source, focusing more on PC, focusing more on the Switch, focusing more so on the Xbox Series consoles. And that's what they're going to do. Now, is everything going? Who knows? At some point, I would say a lot of the newer stuff will eventually go, and it may get to a point where day and date for PC, which I think is going to be sooner rather than later. We'll see if Wolverine is announced as PC and console day and date. I mean, it might as well be because it's already a PC exclusive, since you can, literally play it on PC right now. But we'll see how far they go as far as when they get to the day and date for PC. I think that's going to be a sooner, measure that you'll notice. And then at some point, it'll go from, hey, this game comes over to Xbox a year later, or it comes over to Xbox at 6 months, 3 months, same day. It's a multiplayer game. Well, we'll see how that transition works. We've seen it with Microsoft. You're going to see the same thing with Sony. I guess the stubborn ones are going to be Nintendo, but me personally, I think at some point they're going to look around and look at PC, and instead of suing all of these emulator companies, they're going to be like, you know what? If we put stuff on PC, we could get all of that money. And they like money. So we'll see how long it takes them to put stuff on PC. Now, I don't foresee them doing stuff on other consoles, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. I mean, they brought back the Virtual Boy, and you're going to make you pay $25 plus for the cardboard version of it. So the Labo stuff is back. But all in all, I expect Sony is going to continue putting stuff on other platforms. Will it be to the extent what we see Microsoft doing today? Maybe not for a year or two, but it will eventually happen. And considering their output isn't what it used to be, as far as having 4 of their own first-party titles in a year type of time, now it's down to like 1 or 2, and MLB being that one that's pretty much consistent. I think they're going to look for other avenues to help fund other, bigger titles. Like when you're spending 300 million on Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2, and it doesn't do as well as a game that may have cost 100 mil, if that, when it comes to Helldivers 2. I think they're going to reevaluate a lot of things and look at how they can capitalize on making as much money as possible. Because at the end of the day, that's what a business is for, to make money. It's not to, cuddle your feelings as far as this plastic box and whatnot. It is about making money. So I would say if you're a PlayStation fan and you hate this move, just buy shares, because you'll benefit in the end when they start making more money from, expanding their player base. But who am I? I don't know. So that's all I got.